All right, we are live. Welcome to this week's Truss T&T interview. I am Logan Wilkes, one of the CEOs and partners of Truss, but we are here, most importantly, with one of our members, Shawn Moon. Shawn is the CEO of Zerorez, but he was also the executive vice president of Franklin Covey and has wrote 6 books, including this awesome one, Leading Loyalty. But Shawn, give us a little bit of you're a Renaissance man. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you did with Franklin Covey and how you got to Zerorez.
Well, thanks, Logan. It's great to be with you. And first of all, I would just say how much we love Truss and how what a great job you all have done in the midst of COVID, helping us feel like we've got connection, which is so critical. I mean, one of the things that has been challenging for a lot of people is just the sense of being, disconnected, almost lonely for our business colleagues in the interaction. And you have been a little shining light of hope. So thank you for all that you have done. We love our Truss connection.
Thanks, Shawn.
Been CEO of Zerorez for almost 3 years. It's been a great experience, and it's a great organization to be part of. I did spend about 30 plus years at Franklin Covey, executive vice president of Franklin Covey for the previous 9 years. And as you mentioned, I've been involved in lots of thought leadership and writing. A part of when I was at Franklin Covey, I was responsible for all of our global direct operations. So I had the opportunity to work with a lot of smart people. Worked many years with Dr. Stephen R. Covey, who's one of the great mentors in my life, and great men like Hiram Smith and Bob Whitman and other people who have helped shape and mold my thinking and my leadership. Very grateful to them. And then recently had opportunity to work with Stephen M. R. Covey extensively on work with Speed of Trust. I was responsible for that practice, and Chris McChesney and our 4 disciplines of execution practice and the productivity practice and our sales performance practice. So a number of areas that was responsible for and had the privilege of working with some really great people.
That's amazing. So all of you Truss members, when you sit next to Shawn, you also have a business leadership guru in your midst. So Shawn, in listening to this book and reading this book, talk to me a little bit about how, going through all of this, how do you define customer loyalty through your lens, through all of your years of research and expertise in this?
So let me make a distinction between what we have for years we've talked about customer satisfaction. In fact, in the hospitality industry, we measure guest satisfaction and we have satisfaction indices and all these metrics associated with satisfaction. I would suggest that there is a big difference between satisfaction and loyalty, because you can get a satisfaction score on the metrics that might be high, but that doesn't measure this notion that if something else were to come up, would you jump ship, right? Would you quickly change course? Loyalty is a very different thing, and I like to define it just very simply what I call the Friday night factor. You're on a date on Friday night, back in the day and it's coming soon. We're about there. We can go to a restaurant and sit down with our loved ones and our friends and have a conversation. And in that conversation, you feel so compelled to tell this story. Like, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you what happened to me today. It was so amazing. You start to evangelize. You start to talk about the incredible experience that you had with that particular organization. That's a very different thing than simply guest satisfaction. Now, if you were to ask the question, could you tell a story, a recent example or story in your life where your expectations have just not been met? It was just a crappy experience. We like to tell those stories. They're fun, right? And we all have them, and we all have dozens and dozens of them. But every once in a while, not very often, there comes this experience that is so amazing. You just got to talk about it. You say, these guys were remarkable, right? So think about, Logan, an example in just your own experience, and Stephen come up with one where you would say that experience with that organization was remarkable. It was amazing. I mean, and it taps into a different part of your brain, and it gives you a different level of energy when you think about those organizations. So that's what we mean when we say loyalty. It is a different kind of experience than simply, yeah, I was satisfied. That was okay.
So Shawn, in this craziness of COVID, right? Businesses are maybe tightening the budgets. Families are tightening the budget. So loyalty is really important in order to get.
Maybe more important now than ever before, because in the midst of choice, which we have always had, now we're looking at, yeah, but I'm going to make fewer of these choices.
So if we had another trust member here and they said, Shawn, what 1 to 2 to 3 pieces of advice would you give me to make sure to increase that customer loyalty, to see this COVID craziness as an opportunity to increase loyalty? What would you tell them?
Okay, maybe I'll just focus on 3 things. First of all, I would suggest that you need to adopt a loyalty mindset, not just you as the leader, but work to do that in your organization. I'll talk about how you might consider doing that. But a mindset, how we think about things really determines what we do, and what we do determines the results that we get. And so it starts with our mindset. You've got to understand and really commit to this. We are in the business, whatever our business is, we are in the business of creating loyal stakeholders. And when I say stakeholders, I'm not just talking about customers. I'm talking about all stakeholders: your ownership team, your customers, your employees, the community in which you reside, your family members, your partners, your distributors, et cetera. Anyone that has any kind of interest in your organization of any kind, we would define as a stakeholder. And so adopting, number 1, a loyalty mindset, that this is our business. Regardless of what product or service we provide, ultimately we are in the business of establishing loyal relationships. That's the first thing. Starts with a mindset. Number 2, I would suggest maybe it is critical to think about who are the drivers of loyalty in your organization. So it's a little quiz, Logan, for you. What would you suggest is the number 1 most important leadership role in any organization? What do you think?
Well, I've read your book and recently listened to a bunch of podcasts, so I'm cheating. But it's now let's see if I got it right. Listen, I would say it's your frontline employees, your frontline team.
And I would agree with that. I'm going to talk about why that is. And we like to think I'm the CEO right now of a great organization whose business is to serve other people and to create loyalty, feelings of loyalty. But as important and as great as I think I might be, I'm going to suggest I am not the most important leadership role in the organization. And the reason is 70%, it's even actually a little bit more than that, of how your organization is perceived in the marketplace is driven by your front line.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy? It's the people who interface every day with your customers. They're the ones that create loyalty. And here's the harsh reality about that level. This group is the level that is the least trained. They are the least paid, and they have the highest turnover of any group inside your organization. And yet it's in their hands that we basically give the keys to the kingdom, saying, you are the one. So you think about what an organization invests in, right? They invest in marketing. I'm a big marketing guy, and I love to tell the story. They invest in sales. They invest in brand. They invest in, community presence. They invest in all kinds of things. And all of those, think about our experience with hotels or airlines, right? We're going to travel again. That day will come, and it will come soon. And we all have our points and our frequent flyer numbers and all of that. In fact, I've flown recently and sit down with trust members on my way back to Salt Lake. That happens often, right? We all travel a lot, and we all love our reward points and our loyalty points. And those are good things, but they only represent 30% of how your organization is perceived. So we have this disproportionate focus. So if that front line is so critical in establishing loyalty, creating this loyal organization, what is the leadership role that has the most influence on that front line? And it is your first level leader, right? The leadership team is so critical. So the first point is develop a loyalty mindset. The second point is you got to focus on that first level leader, because they are the ones that then focus with their team. That is where the rubber meets the road. And then number three, and I mentioned this a minute ago, that there's a process for engaging that frontline team. I would suggest you consider what I call loyalty huddles, right? And we can talk more about huddle if you'd like, but gathering your team up for a minute or two, and really that's all it takes each week, and engaging them around some specific loyalty discussions. Those are three things that I would suggest would be important.
Shawn, tell me more about the loyalty huddles and how. I know on one of your podcasts you talked about how you implemented them at Zerorez and other places. Walk me through those in more detail.
Sure. So in the book, we lay all of this out, and you can follow the direction in the book, or you can just come up with your own. In the book, we've identified 11 huddles. So think about the concept of a huddle. This actually started in 1918 with a little college called the Oregon College of Agriculture and Technology. And they had a football team, and they were preparing for a game on Saturday. And Monday, the week prior to the game, the coach pulls the quarterback aside, and he says to the quarterback, let's try something. Why don't you pull your offensive guys together for just a few seconds, and let's talk about play. Never happened before. Let's talk about the play. Let's get our heads focused. Let's just focus on the play. And they did that, and they had success that weekend. They won the game, and the opposing team and the people in the stands were like, what's going on? And they did it again the next week, and pretty soon other teams caught on, and pretty soon this became how football was played, that there was a huddle. And in the huddle, you're not talking about what happened last week, and you're not talking about what's going to happen 2 weeks from now. You're talking about what's going to happen right now. It's a very focused, very to the point kind of thing. And so we've identified 11 huddles, and in the huddles, we just simply recommend pull your team together and have a discussion about a particular loyalty practice, and do it, for 10 minutes. I think it was, what was the Diamond Nut Company, the almond company, that said 1 can a week, that's all we ask. Well, I would say 10 minutes a week, that's all we ask. If you can get your team together and focus them just that, not talk about what's going to happen 2 months from now. It's not a big strategic discussion. It is a behavioral discussion to say, all right, what are we going to focus on this week? So we've identified in the book 11 of these specific huddles, and you can come up with others as well.
Is there a specific outline or template that you use in these huddles?
There is. It's 4 very simple steps. And you see that on what page? What page is that?
I'm on page 151. I'm looking at the share insights openly, huddle number 9.
Okay, so in that huddle number 9, the first thing that you do, you'll have had huddles prior to that. So the first step is you take a minute to celebrate with your team. Say, I saw Susan last week have an interaction with a customer where it was a tough issue, and she listened well. She didn't get defensive. She helped the customer feel really understood. It was amazing. Susan, that was remarkable. Good job. We don't celebrate enough, I don't think, institutionally and individually as individuals and teams. And so I would propose, and we propose in this book, take a few minutes at the beginning of the huddle to celebrate, okay? And then you take a minute or a few minutes just to talk about, all right, this week we're going to talk about huddle number 9, which is to share insights openly. And you talk about what that principle means. It means the sharing of information, that if we have ideas that we're open about it. And we have a discussion with each other about what that means. And then, this is the key. Then as the leader, you go around and have each person make a specific commitment. What's one thing, Logan, you commit to doing this week to implement this practice? One thing. And then finally, you schedule your next huddle. It's very simple. 10 minutes, celebrate, you learn a little bit, you make a commitment, and you schedule your next huddle.
Yeah, I love in the book how you even have the questions listed out to ask.
Right.
That's super helpful. Do you do this as a standalone, or do you attach it to another longer meeting?
So pragmatically, a lot of organizations will attach it to another meeting. If you do that, my recommendation is that you have it be as a separate piece of the meeting. For me, I actually do have it at the beginning of my executive team meeting, and we take 10 minutes. It's an official part of the agenda, and I invite everybody to that meeting. And then once that huddle is done, that meeting is over, they leave, and I proceed with my executive team. So there are a lot of ways you can do it. Depends really on your organization. By the way, we do this in person when we're in person, and we do it virtually when we're not in person. And virtually is a very powerful way of going about it. And it's the world that we live in.
Right. Okay. Last question, Shawn. Those frontline managers or that first level manager, if I have a bunch of those, what's a piece of advice, or what's one or two of the best things I can do to support and train that frontline manager?
Yeah, great question. And this role is so critical. I've spent much of my career in the business of training leaders, 30 plus years of my life. And here's a chilling statistic. Most of us get our first supervisory experience, our first leadership role around age 30. Most of us get our first leadership training experience around age 42. So here's what we've said. This is the most important role in the organization. Here's your job. Good luck. Have at it, right? And very often we say, oh, by the way, we'd like you to continue to do your previous job. Or by the way, we're going to ask you to work with a bunch of really smart millennial and Gen X technology people who probably know more about the system than you do. So good luck managing. Or you've got to manage people virtually. I mean, things that they've never ever done before. One of the hardest mindset shifts that people have is to move from being an individual contributor, where the results that you deliver are on you and you're good. You got promoted to this role because you were a really amazing individual contributor. Now you have to get results with and through other people, and that's a whole different skill set. So just 4 key things maybe I would suggest very quickly. Number one, how you asked the question, how do you best support? I would say that you make it very visible. I spent a lot of my life thinking about and writing about this notion of culture, right? Culture is the collective behavior of the people in your organization, or maybe with a finer point, you say a culture is the collective behavior of your leaders. You want to change your culture, you change the behavior of your leaders. So to affect any kind of change, cultural change, even if the focus is on loyalty, it first has to be a decision from the top, where as the CEO, as the senior leader, as the owner of your organization, you say, this is important to me. You put a firm stake in the ground to say, I am committed to this personally, number one. Number two, any change initiative requires some kind of organizing model, some kind of framework, right? This book is one framework. There's a lot of great diets out there. If you want to lose weight, just follow one, right? This is one really good one, but there are others. But you have to have some kind of organizing model, some kind of framework. So that's a critical way of introducing this to your team. You can't just say, this is a good idea. Most organizational change initiatives fail in the translation from the CEO's mind and his or her executive team's mind to how then that first level leader takes it to his or her team. So you've got to support that with some kind of process. That's the second thing. Number three, that process needs to introduce tools and language, vocabulary, skills, some kind of way of doing things. This book provides that. There are others. And finally, I would say one of the most critical ways that you can support that leader is to be a model of the behavior yourself. And we can all think of experiences where we have had a leader stand up and say, we're going this direction, and then behaves this direction. And that has more negative impact on an organizational culture than any other thing that you could do, right? So that's how we do it. You got to make the decision. You got to make it public. You got to be vocal about it. You got to introduce a framework, some kind of organizing model. That model's got to have process and tools and skills. And then fourth, as a leader, you've got to be a model of that behavior that you're asking other people to demonstrate.
I love that, Shawn. Any last thoughts? Any last words of wisdom?
You know what? Yeah, I would this last thought, we all are familiar with Edwards Deming. He was the father of the quality movement and father of really the transformation of the Japanese business culture following World War II. And he created such a transformation of their business environment. To this day, they have the highest award that a Japanese business can earn is the Deming Award, right? Equivalent to the Malcolm Baldrige Award of the United States. And he came up with these 13 points. And they're all about process improvement, the father of Six Sigma and all lean and all the process improvement stuff. And one of the points is that the solution to almost any problem in the organization, the answer to any problem in any organization is typically found within 12 feet of that problem. In other words, your front line knows what to do. They're serving customers every single day. They don't necessarily need the one, wise sage at the head of the organization to say, all right, here's what I need to do. Your people know what to do. This is one of the things I love about this huddle process is it engages them. They know how to solve problems. They know how to create loyalty. They just need to have that institutionalized just a little bit. So that would be my final bit of wisdom, to invite that kind of participation through this huddle process. You will be amazed. You will be amazed at what happens. I did this with my team. I continue to do it with my team. And we follow these 11 huddles. And we had a very interesting experience after we went through the huddle process. At the end of that, I said to my team, so what do you want to do? And they said, can we start back with huddle number 1? Can we do this again? And what happens is you go through it again. You continue this process. The discussion becomes richer and deeper and more meaningful, right? So that's my last bit of wisdom. Tap into the great knowledge that exists with the great people that you have.
I love it. Well, Shawn, here's my commitment to you. Our team meetings are on Monday. So next Monday, we're going to do huddle number one as a team. And
I love it. I love it.
Let you know how it goes.
You might consider, by the way, as you do that, when you get to huddle number 2, invite someone other than you to read the chapter and be the huddle leader.
I love it.
And let people have that opportunity to take a little bit of ownership. Love that you're doing that.
Yeah, you talk to my team. I love delegation.
Truss, I will just kind of end as I begin. You are models of this. People love Truss because you create loyalty. And I should have worn my new shirt that you sent because I love it. Thank you for all that you're doing. We appreciate you.
No, thank you, Shawn. Highly recommend his book. And yeah, I'll put a link to the book in the comments underneath this video. And other than that, thank you, Shawn. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Hope to see you soon.
Take care.